Happy January 18th, JLD here, and welcome to MicroStrategy today. In this show, we'll be talking about MSTR's upcoming blackout period, a Bloomberg article about the future of cryptocurrency as a national priority for the US. I have two unbelievable charts from the MicroStrategist you're not going to want to miss. A great video clip from David Sachs, our crypto czar. This will pump you up. And then CNBC getting absolutely bewildered on live television about MicroStrategy. We are so early. And speaking of early, I was hoping to get to $400 yesterday, my friends, and we came close. Look at this chart. $396.50 is where we close. And in the after hours, we actually got up to $398.50. Of course, we'll see where Bitcoin goes over the next few days to see where we open up on Tuesday, the next time MicroStrategy is available to trade. But it's been quite a good week with a lot of positive catalysts that have happened and that are coming up shortly. Let's talk about this tweet from the Bitcoin therapist. Clear skies ahead for the MSTR degens. The MSTR earnings is on February 4th. I can't wait for that earnings. Blackout period, usually 2 weeks prior. Sunday announcement of Saylor buying BTC will be the last until then, I suspect. If Bitcoin goes on a run, could be clear skies for MSTR with no ATM usage. And so this is pretty common when a company has an earnings call. They go on a mandatory blackout period where they can't do much activity within the stock, like they can't do any ATM, no at-the-market selling. And if that happens, then it could be clear skies ahead, as James Van Straten shares. So we'll see what Bitcoin does, of course, but MicroStrategy could have a fun couple weeks ahead of it. Let's talk about a post by Matt. MSTR is waiting until after the vote on Tuesday to deploy this new preferential stock offering, and they may have to wait until after the earnings call, supposed blackout period, before issuing another convert. $750 in Q1. Matt, I hope you're right, brother. So we'll see what happens. But again, this is another exciting thing that's happening. We'll have the vote on Tuesday for the authorized share, as well as a couple other initiatives that I know I voted positively for, which I'm pretty pumped about. And I'm expecting there to be an overwhelming support for that vote, which to me is just going to inject further confidence into the stock that the shareholders are so behind Michael Saylor, are so behind MicroStrategy that exciting times are ahead. So we'll see what happens. But again, a lot of huge and fun catalysts are coming. Let's talk about this tweet from Ben Workman. Remember all the way back to Monday when we were down to 89,000 and all the analysts started coming out of the woodwork calling for an imminent drop to the $60,000 to $70,000 Bitcoin range and the full demise of MSTR. That was fun. And guess what? It's going to happen again on a future pullback by Bitcoin, on a future pullback by MSTR. That's why I'm creating videos every day like this to show you the positive things that are happening, to remind you that it's never going to be always up and to the right. That's not going to be the volatile lifestyle of MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is meant to be volatile. It's meant to have this vitality from volatility, because that is a feature, not a bug. Let's move on to this radar breaking: Trump to designate cryptocurrency as a national priority. This is a Bloomberg article. So they're posting this, that Trump plans to designate cryptocurrency as a national priority. That is, the leader of the United States, starting next week, is designating cryptocurrency, which of course, the apex of cryptocurrency is Bitcoin, as a national priority. Good things ahead. Let's talk about this MicroStrategist charts. I just love when this person posts. Marty, killing it, brother. As people wake up to what MSTR is doing again, MSTR will run up again to the upper end of the fair value range, and the percentile rank will head towards 100%. Here's what 2025 could look like, inspired by this guy's comments in the last MSTR TN. And you can see right about here is where we are with the US presidential inauguration. And then this is a projection of what's going to happen up until a very common 15 April tax selling event. a little dump off, and then another massive run up. And if any of these lines end up happening, even the most bearish one, this has MicroStrategy at $2,500 a share by October of 2025. I'm on board for that. Just for the record, I'm on board for that. And I hope a lot of you are as well. And again, I'll post this tweet in the show notes so you can go ahead and zoom in on this chart. I'll even give it a quick zoom in right here if you guys just want to take this in real quick and see what's going on. But the full tweet will be in the show notes so you can check out. The other thing I wanted to share was actually on the MicroStrategist blog. It's microstrategist.com/ballistic, where he shares what the Bitcoin price is, what the MSTR price is, and what the model price should be, and how it's undervalued by 12.9%. And you can see this red dot is actually right where we are. So when we're under this line, that means we're undervalued according to this model. And of course, there's been a lot of time where MicroStrategy has lived above this line, as you can see all these points here. So something really interesting to look at. There's a lot you can play around with here. You can have a lot of fun inputting numbers and looking at all these amazing charts and things that are happening. So great job by Marty, per usual. Thanks you for this great content. And then I did want to share this great tweet from BitStrategy. It is titled Avalanche. Okay. My mind is reeling. This is how I see it playing out. The fat lady is singing, the avalanche has started. MicroStrategy and the nation states, led by the USA, will rapidly acquire the remaining Bitcoin over the next 12 to 24 months. All Bitcoin will be off markets. Bitcoin trading on major exchanges will cease. Some P2P trading will still occur. Commercial banks will not offer Bitcoin directly. Instead, they will offer Bitcoin-backed derivative products, which will provide limited upside exposure with downside protection, similar to MSTR convertible bonds. Nations that fail to acquire Bitcoin reserves will be able to acquire MSTR products instead and repackage them to offer via their commercial banking networks. Why I see this as inevitable. Bitcoin provides unparalleled access to credit. As public corporations and nation states acquire Bitcoin, it increases their access to credit and their ability to buy more Bitcoin. This virtuous cycle is responsible for the stratospheric rise in the market capitalization of MicroStrategy. Since adopting our Bitcoin strategy in 2020, our Bitcoin stack is a giant snowball. With every rotation, its surface area increases in size and picks up even more mass. Bitcoin begets Bitcoin. We are approaching escape velocity. An unstoppable credit collateral reflexive process has commenced. The endpoint of this process is not reversal. It is the removal of all Bitcoin from the open marketplace. The countdown has started. Do you have enough? As always, inspiring tweets. Thank you, BitStrategy, for making that happen. Now I'm going to share with you a great video clip of David Sachs. This is our crypto czar. Look at what he is publicly proclaiming and promising. Plus, I just love it when I see traditional media get bewildered because they are so far behind. We are so early. Watch CNBC try to figure out what MicroStrategy is and the future of all of its products and so many cool things. And we'll let them take it away.
The reign of terror against crypto is over. And the beginning of innovation in America for crypto has just begun.
Well, Bitcoin clinging to the 100K level just days before President-elect Trump's inauguration, and a new wave of digital currency innovation could be on the way. Strive Asset Management filing for a new Bitcoin bond ETF, giving investors exposure to crypto through corporate debt rather than directly holding underlying tokens. The fund would primarily invest in bonds from companies like MicroStrategy, which now holds 450,000 Bitcoin. Strive CEO Matt Cole joined us here on set for more. Matt, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
I assume that it's a pretty concentrated portfolio then, since there are only a handful of companies that actually do that.
Yeah. So to start, there's only a handful of companies. The TAM of these companies, of the actual convertible bonds, is about $10 billion. But interestingly, when you even look at those companies or companies that have not issued these convertible bonds yet, there's a lot of desire. So there's a lot of desire for more supply if you just think about Econ 101. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a lot of demand, clearly, from retail investors that haven't been able to access these bonds. And so I think what you're going to see over the next year is just a shift up in supply and a shift up in demand as there's a democratization of access to these bonds.
How do you know that the convertibles that are issued by these companies are actually going to be deployed and buying Bitcoin? I mean, sometimes when they file, they don't necessarily, it'll say general corporate purposes.
Yeah. So our job is to say, do we reasonably expect them to buy Bitcoin? And so this kind of gets into the definition of how we define a Bitcoin bond. And so my background, I'm a fixed income background, worked at CalPERS for 16 years prior to joining Strive. And if you go back to the green bond era, a green bond was a bond issued by a corporation to invest in solar panels for their roof or something like that. And as long as we reasonably think that they're going to be deploying into Bitcoin, we define that as a Bitcoin bond.
Fascinating stuff. And when I think about risk reward, and again, from a credit perspective, aside from the fact that credit investors in a cap structure they're higher in the cap structure than equity investors. But when I think about a MicroStrategy, and I'm not suggesting they're on the eve of a credit event, but I would almost think that the risk reward here for buying a bond that's linked to a company who could have huge credit exposure because they're wildly levered to the price of Bitcoin isn't a great trade-off of risk reward for a bond that, to me, help us understand also for the investors what the return profile of these bonds is. Are we talking about correlation to Bitcoin returns?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, you have to figure out how do you break these bonds, right? Because there's always a way to break a bond. And right now with MicroStrategy, the value of the total aggregate debt versus their Bitcoin is about 25%. So you would need a decrease of, call it 75% in the price of MicroStrategy, but then they also have a laddered maturity schedule. So they don't have 100% of that debt due in any year. It's due over many years. And so if you're a Bitcoin bull, it's very hard to break these bonds. And we're talking about a major decline. And then not only a decline, but it has to basically flatline there for them to really have real solvency issues and not be able to do things like issue a little bit more equity to cover their actual first maturity. And so if you think about it that way, there's a lot of Bitcoin bear scenarios where these bonds are going to pay off at par. And so that creates a really interesting risk return ratio where on the upside, they're designed to give about 75% of the upside of the exposure to MicroStrategy, at least in the issuance of MicroStrategy debt. And then in most reasonable bear scenarios, they'll pay back at par. And so that creates an interesting risk return scenario from a Sharpe ratio perspective of, yes, it may not return the same as MicroStrategy, but you're getting a good chunk of the upside with limited downside unless everything goes really bad. And if everything goes really bad, then you're not going to do well, whether you're in the equity or Bitcoin or the debt.
And there you have it, another episode of MicroStrategy Today. Please remember that this video is my opinions only. It is not financial advice. Here is a receipt of my accountability for purchasing another $210 of MicroStrategy. I did it yesterday at 12:39 p.m. at a price of $391. And that gave me 0.539 share of MicroStrategy for a total dollar amount of $210, which I'm committed to buying every single day for 2025. Who's in my DC gang? Let me know in the comments. And also, let me know in the comments where you're watching this from. We are collecting all this data of where MSTR viewers are around the world. It's becoming a fantastic list. So keep that coming. Comment below. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe to keep this channel going. And as always, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.